extremely important that you get comfortable manipulating your flashlight within your natural gesture, within your casual blur. So I'll get in the habit of holding it and seeing that I can open my hand but keep it tightly pursed between my thumb in the thumb web and the ball of the hand. I can hit very easily from here if I have to, but I can move and I can gesture casually. I'm a fan, whenever I start to move a little bit more dramatically, of usually closing 2 to 3 of the bottom fingers, because it gives me a little bit of control, and that's just from experience, because if you start working with your hands too flayed, you might drop the flashlight, and it quickly corrects. So I like to keep the flashlight against my body, covered by my free hand, and then moving naturally in gesture. There's some degree of open that's possible, but I will sometimes work more towards pointing and keep my fingers closed. At any point, I practice punching up and getting to my light and moving away. So that's extremely important as a basic setup, a basic manipulation. In an interview position, if I was looking at an ID and I had to ask something of the person, it's forgivable, and I've certainly done it where I'll simply move it up to the suspect's face. But normally, given a choice, I will move it off to the side. Because in darkness, if the light is a little bit to the side, especially if it's above, it disorients and it makes it harder for them to see. If I simply blind directly into the face and they can't see, all they need to do is hit towards the light to know where I am. And most people, in my experience, will intuitively hit towards the light. So this is something I learned very early on. I used to hold my flashlight like a pen, and I would work like this and then look up like that at the suspect, and I would even keep it on the subject's chin not to be too aggressive, and then in doing that sometimes people would just sail off and throw a punch at you, and now you find yourself flinching. People that were more experienced were always holding it solidly, and they were moving it off to the side and holding it, and then every once in a while you'd see somebody try to sucker punch the light. They're fully blinded because this is completely in their face when it's working. They punch towards the light, but they are not there, right? And they ends up going over the shoulder, makes it far easier to defend. So never have a pencil or pen grip, always a solid hammer fist grip, and get in the habit of moving it away and training it on your subject. For politeness, I'm trying not to always put it directly in the lens of the camera guys, but practice aligning it and getting it into the person's eyes at no matter what angle you're holding it, whether it's above or slightly off to the side, or even in some cases if it's a little bit lower. Second thing to look at is once we get into movement, if I, let's say, pop it up from the chest, or if I pop it up from a side position, I want to move away from the light. So I want to get out of the habit of moving in. Now, it's not always a question of taking multiple steps. Very often I'll see people in training pop up the light and then churn into it and get closer. So I always want to pop up the light and move away, even if only for a step. Pop up the light and move away and reshift my attention. Again, here I'm keeping the light a little bit lower than I would. It would normally be in your face as I perform that motion, so it's not as noticeable that I've moved. In lower light, if there's some smoke or ambient interference of any type, even loud music, things like this, all serve to distract. Tension distracts in the street. If people are really nervous, they have a plan to attack you, they're victimizing you, they're looking at you, and suddenly now you get into a de-escalation where you have a light in their face. It disorients them, it violates their expectation pattern, and it immediately gives you the advantage of counter ambush. If I must move, I'm always going to move away from the light, but there are times where I might need to change directions and therefore come back to the light, if not cross the light. And those moments can be dangerous. So there are two schools of thought here. Some people teach that because the moment the light crosses the body, I am vulnerable, which is theoretically true. Therefore, it is better to never have the light in front of my face. And what they do is they move the light over their head like a halo. But even if I'm moving away from the light, and now I need to change directions, and I cross over, when I start to move like this, even in complete darkness, the halo creates this intuitive center. And people instinctively shoot to the middle of that halo. I've seen it in simunitions training. I've seen it in sucker punch empty-handed drills. People think they're being clever by crossing with the halo, but ultimately they've created this dome, this invisible umbrella that orients where they are. So I would far rather keep it up a little higher, and when I move it across, it does cross my body temporarily, but I'm really not going to be there very long. In fact, I've even had very good success changing hands. Sometimes I'll pull it out with my dominant side, but let's say I needed to clear a door, clear a person, access a weapon, anything that would require me changing hands, it allows me to do so. So I have no issue changing hands, and I have no issue crossing my face, because when I have that cross happen, it's for a fraction of a second. It's far harder in conditions of darkness to see where I am. People will instinctively shoot for that light, and my head is moving very, very quickly. And if I do want to switch hands, I can switch hands quite easily. So this basic pattern of moving and having the light briefly cross in front of my face when I step is an important one to have. All right, guys, here we are in the IFS Combat Basement to do a basic flashlight test. Let's say now we have the added challenge of having to clear a door, open a door. So given the option, I would rather never be behind the door. If there's somebody with a gun on the other side, they instinctively shoot through the door. I'm going to be in increased danger right in their funnel. If they decide to tackle and start punching and I'm stuck behind it, then I can get into a lot of trouble. So what I'm looking to do is generally keep the flashlight in the hand that is not responsible for the door, to keep it above and away from, and I'm going to look to have it oriented directly on the crack. I want to see the hottest point of light directly on the crack. My free hand is going to crouch down. I'm going to crouch down from the legs and touch the doorknob. And what I'm looking to do is take the slack out of the doorknob, turning it slowly, and then, that's just to avoid any sort of warning noise, then I'm going to swing that door open and I'm going to shine my light in and now proceed to clear and to move to my next point.